Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from VitalLearning. I am Morten and I'm here with my good friend and colleague Lars Roskil Hendriksen. Privet, Lars.
Privet, Morten. Good to see you as always, and it's always good to be with our listeners out there. We always start off with a quick reminder to remind you of the purpose of this podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. So we hope that today's episode supports you in that. If you're new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 6 to get an introduction to the basics of GTD. And today's episode is number 87. And the topic for the day is Apple Reminders as your GTD system.
Indeed it is, and this came up because I've migrated to Apple Reminders from Omnifocus, and you're doing the same, but from Todoist, isn't that so?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. Just started to move slowly over the past few weeks, making what I hope is a good way to make the transition from one system to the next, and so far I'm liking it.
Mm. And I think maybe it is a good idea that we start with the very, very, very first question is, why on earth would you migrate from one system to another?
Well, for me, I think the main focus for me for a while now has been to simplify my system, to make it more easily accessible, more easy to work with. I'm also very sensitive to how much information is shown to me at any given time. So I really want a very clean, very straightforward system to set up and maintain and work with. And that was one aspect. And the other was just to, I've been on Todoist for 6 years, I think, and now it was time for me to, I think, try something else. Try to simplify it a bit, and the integrations and the layout of reminders, I think, was sort of the key starting point for me to try that out as a system as well. And also the other aspect was to, still when we deliver trainings, we want to be, well versed in the different types of software out there, and in many cases, at least in Denmark, when we set people up in companies and also in the virtual seminar that I had this week with a group of people, we set people up in Microsoft To Do, and it's a pretty straightforward system, as we just spoke about in the pre-show talk. Much of the functionality that is available in Reminders is somewhat similar to what we have in Microsoft To Do, and I wanted to, again, come back to that feeling of just those nice, plain, straightforward lists. So having that, a personal experience as well was also part of the motivation for me. What about you?
No, the same. I have been in the Omnifocus system since version 0.9 or something, and I just wanted, it's your system gets, you try out different things, you try out folders, which I did in excess, a little too many, I think, for my areas of responsibility, and at some point it dawned on me, I want to try something different, just for the trying of it, just to refresh my own GTD system, because it's easy to get stuck in your old ways and stuck in the way that you've always done it like this, and if it feels stale, doesn't attract you anymore, it's time to try and find something else maybe. And I just want to give a heed of a warning here now for our listeners, is that if you feel that your system is becoming stale and you're not attracted to it, it might also be that you're not doing it correctly. I just want to say that don't blame it on the tool. A fool with a tool is still a fool. So get to know your system well and know your GTD well. Should we just pause for just 3 minutes? And what would you say, Lars, for someone who wants to get really good at getting things done? What is the most important, or a few of the most important things to remember when you set up and use your system as you see it?
Well, for me, when I started off now, and just coming back to what you mentioned about maybe over-organizing in Omnifocus, I think that was certainly also part of what I was trying to get rid of in Todoist. So I had been trying, I think 6 months ago, cleaned out the system, removed a lot of areas of focus, and tried to get back to a more plain system. And that really was the starting point for me here. And again, the key thing for me to start off with the migration part was really just to rethink the list that I wanted to have, and many of them will be the same that I had as labeled before in Todoist. But it's nice to sort of revisit them, and I know this from the Danish GTD community as well. I know several of the people there that have migrated from one system to the next, and just that refresh that this naturally follows, that when you migrate something manually from one place to the next, you're automatically revisiting these things and thinking them through, and whether I want to bring them with me to my new system. So that was part of the exercise for me as well.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to my mind is that I felt like my system become that drawer, and that it's get a little, it's we have a word in this in Norwegian. I don't know if you have that in Danish. I'm sure you have roteskuff. This drawer that gets more and more messy, and there's a lot of stuff there that's you don't have any other places for. And it felt like that a little in my my GTD system in Omnifocus, because there's a lot of old stuff there that I had grown accustomed that it existed there, but then just to clear house and start just fresh new with a new drawer called Apple Reminders, that has been a good experience for me. I revitalized my GTD system and my GTD practice. So
yeah, nice way to put it.
So should we just dive into what is Apple Reminders and how does it work, and why should you at all consider it, and should you consider it at all? I don't know if we can maybe start with the basics here. So if you have an iPhone, that's the bare minimum, or an iPad, the bare minimum for doing this. But if you're in the Apple ecosystem, having an iPhone and maybe and a Mac, then you should definitely consider that as a possible option if you want to switch or just create your system from anew. Lars mentioned, Lars, the Microsoft Tattoo, which is an excellent system, and especially if you're on either Android, an iPhone, and a PC, that is beautiful. It works really well. The system setup is fairly close to what an Apple Reminder ecosystem would look like. Yeah. What differs, as I can see it, is the fact that the tight integration that you get with in the Apple ecosystem of stuff is that what differs it from reminders. You can, if you set it up correctly, use Siri, for instance, to add a task to do, which is, a lot of people don't know this, but if you go into the app, going into the settings, you can then turn on Siri, and you can say, hey girl, hey girl, make a reminder or create a task, and then she will ask you what would you like to be reminded of, and then you just tell her, and then she put it in your, if you define a folder or a list as an inbox, then it will go in your inbox. Exactly the same as you would with Siri and Apple Reminder. So I'm not touting that all of you should now become switch to Macs. A lot of you are not there, and which I understand. I've been a PC man for many years. But if you're on a PC, Microsoft To Do is a good alternative. But if you're on you want to look at reminders, you can use it on your phone as maybe a standalone system. It actually works fairly well without the Mac as well. Yeah. So what is because you've been looking at this, what is attracting you, Lars, to this system? What made you look at reminders as a... Was it my inspiration?
Well, I think
say yes. Say yes.
Because you did it, Morten. No, I think no. That was certainly part of the reason. I think it's been time for a refresh for me for quite a while. So after being with the same system for 5 years, it was time for me to try something new. I think before Todoist, I was on OneNote, and I used that for many years as well. So I think that was sort of there's maybe a frequency for me to try out something new. I think certainly the integrations across different items. So I was also I don't know if it's if anyone out there can relate. So we use the Google Suite as our platform for managing email. Normally would use the web interface. I get really annoyed by the fact that when I respond to an email, it pops up in the bottom right corner, and I want to respond to that email. And typically there will be multiple paragraphs, and I'll want to respond to each of those. And it was just cluttering the interface. It was really sort of overlapping. Couldn't really see the email. I'm sure there are some tools out there that can help you with this. But that also actually led me back to Apple Mail. So I'm able to actually have them as separate windows, put them up next to each other. Works the same way for me here on the Mac as well. When I'm on the iPad, I can do the split screen view, and I can have my email in one side and my email client in the other. So that was actually part of the motivation as well to switch over there as well, away from the Gmail interface and then over to Apple Mail. And then I still actually use, just to wrap up the email side of things, I still go in on a daily basis in the Gmail interface, and the reason for that is that I still haven't found the button. Perhaps you can tell me where it is, but the button not to automatically fetch emails when they show up, because obviously I don't want them to keep dumping into my inbox. I prefer to have that inbox pause functionality. So I still use that plugin. So the Boomerang one is the one that I personally use. So I'll go in there, I'll pause the email. This afternoon we're recording this on a Friday, so I'll pause it until Monday morning, and then those emails will show up at 9 or something like that.
No, and I'm just want to make sure I'm asking intelligent questions now. But are you talking about Mail or Gmail? For that
Mail app. So I'm in Gmail for setting that pause functionality, because they have that plugin. But otherwise, so during the day, if I respond to an email now, I'm back on the mail.app application.
Yeah. No, I've not walked that walk with Apple Mail yet, because I have a little troublesome past with them, because when the database of your emails is really big, it takes a big chunk of your hard drive. And I prefer having that in the cloud. I'm not sure if you can. I'm sure you can, but then it loses some of the functionality that I want. Because I want to be able to if I make a mail search, I want to search everything, not just whatever the app decide to download. If you say download the last 30 days of emails, maybe I will not have the possibility to do that search. But I'm using Gmail in Chrome, and you can use Gmail in Chrome to just invoke your Siri. You can activate Siri on your keyboard. It's command space, I think I've used for this, and then Siri wakes up, and I will tell her, remind me of this, and it will show up in the list I've called my default list in reminders called Inbox, with a link back to that email. So that's fairly cool, and that works for me, and it will open a Chrome window with that, or a Chrome tab with that email when I'm ready to answer it. Even if I close the Gmail tab itself, it will just open that email. So
that's how you will move emails sort of out of the inbox and over into your system, and then you can define the next action, or how does that then work for you?
No, what I do is that when I have an email I want to create an action for, I would just ask Siri to remind me this, and that email will then suddenly appear as an action in my inbox. Then I have to redefine that, and then I can make an archive, and I can open it again, because the Gmail is very good at searching, even though as long as the unique last part of the URL is correct, then it will find it whichever folder it might reside in, even if it's all items or something like that. So.
And just on that note, I was recently in Greenland doing coaching and seminars, and in that we worked primarily with the web interface for Outlook. So I had a chance to work a bit more with that. And again, if you're looking to, so now we're specifically talking about reminders, but if you weren't to do, it actually is very nice now to be in your email inbox, to just drag emails over. It'll work fine with that link back. Even if you move that email again, the link back won't work just fine, just like you described for Gmail. So I think, again, for those of you not in the Apple ecosystem, we're talking about reminders because that's where you and I are now. But it works again very nicely in the Microsoft environment too.
It does. I think maybe we should just talk about how we set up. I'm a little ahead of you in the curve, and in the pre-show we had a quick look at my system, and I can't show you my system, people, on camera because as we are on YouTube now, it will be client confidential information I can't show you, and I can't do that. But what I've done is that I created the basic lists that you need, and I will just pull up my Apple reminders just to have a look at them so that I know what I'm talking about. Because it's a little important that you have the correct lists in your system. Let's see, I'll just do like this. So my lists are as follows. I used single lists for the default list. You can set up in the settings to be whatever you want it to be. I renamed the default reminders to be inbox. And I've used my iPhone because I find that easier to then create icons for each of the lists that I want. For instance, my decide outcome work is the second list on my in my list system. I've had a building of an office, and then my decide outcome personal is a house. So I use icons because I'm very visual in my navigation. That helps me to find the correct list fast. And then I've created a folder of lists. That is, you can create a folder that you can collapse so that you can close it and open it whenever you want for my next actions. So for this, I have a next action folder. And I have my list for at office, at Mac, at home, and errands. These are the 4 next actions lists that I'm using. And then I've done the same thing for Agenda 4. So I have a Agenda 4 folder, and I have then Agenda 4 each of the people I talk to on a regular basis. So Lars, you have a list. You know this.
Yay!
Yay! And then I have a waiting for list. I have a someday maybe list. Then I created something that works for me. I have some repeating tasks that need to come up on my radar. So those are, I put what you call it, deadlines on. So it will show up in my day list just because I need to remember this on specific days. I have some money I have to send. I have to clean the Roborock, our vacuum cleaner, once a month. And it is easy. If it doesn't fit me to do it right now, I can then just postpone it for an hour or a day, or just move it to another day. And I have other things that repeating. And then I have my weekly review checklist, which is just a list of repeating tasks. That is my weekly review. Done is equals Happy Morten with a smiley face, and then a link from that to my weekly review note checklist. I use Apple Notes to create one list with my the different items of my. We touched upon this in an early episode also, but just my checklist for my weekly review. And the reason I've done that there is because I can then just reset them when I've finished very easily. I don't have to untick them. I just go in a note and then just mark everything unchecked. Then I have some lists that are, one list that's decide outcome on pause, I call it, or you know, the things that I'm not doing right now, but when I have time I will then upgrade them. This is the more or less the bigger brother of someday maybe, or the more certain brother of the someday maybe. Someday maybe is just someday, or maybe I will want to do something about. This is more like ideas for me, but desired outcomes on pause is my preferred place to park things that I know I have to get around to. It's I deem it as important but not urgent, and there it's not on my radar right now. It will come at some point. Then I have some lists. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them there. Maybe I'll move them out somewhere else. I have a list of things I would like to read, and it's like a reading list. Read if I feel like it. I have to name it like that to make sure that it doesn't become something I feel I just have to do. And I have some ideas for nice things to do with my wife list, and then I have what I want to buy if I run into some excess money, which has been this is growing at the moment because of the economical situation in the world. But things I want to buy is on that one. So and that is basically my structure. And in addition to this, I have a shopping list. My shopping list is also shared with my wife, so that if I can tell Siri that, hey lady, add 2 milk to the shopping list, and then it will show up on her shopping list as well. So when she gets in the grocery store, she can open that up and see what did Morten think I should buy, or I can see what she wants me to buy when I'm there. And what I've done more or less religiously, if I decide that something is a project, is a desired outcome for my personal or professional life, I've used hashtags. And I use a hashtag to create a link between the project and the next action, or the waiting for, or whichever category it might be in. But if I go for my desired outcome, I will then create, for instance, we are creating some videos now. It's called in English Frenzied or Focused, which is a video series. For those of you who are in Norway, consider taking that. It's a free video course we made, 4 videos, 4 lectures you might want to take. And this is called hashtag FF for frenzied or focused. And then what happens if you create a hashtag either in the text of the task itself, or you have even actually a tag, what would you call that?
A field for...
A field, yeah. Yes, correct. Yeah. A field for the hashtags as well. I don't use that very often because then it get an extra line, so I use it in the text. So in the text it will be, for instance, frenzied and focused video lections converts, and people learn more GTD. And then I can also use that note field for giving myself some information. But what happens when I then make a hashtag is there is a list, automatically generated list at the end of the list view on the sidebar that gets that hashtag. So if I then want to do my weekly review, I just click that hashtag, and it automatically sorts everything that has that hashtag. The same as Microsoft To Do, or more or less the same as Microsoft To Do would do. Same functionality, and that makes it very easy to do a weekly review, because then I can make sure that I do have an next action on all my desired outcomes. That's on my active list of desired outcomes, professional and work. Yeah. And we mentioned something that you in the pre-show that you didn't know, but there is a possibility to create templates. So you can create templates list. So next time you create a new list, you can then add it from a template list that you created before. So if you have recurring projects that you would like to save some time on, you might want to do that and create templates. So when the project reoccurs to you, it might be a good idea to take it from there. And one of the things, let me pause for a second. Have you seen something I haven't seen about lists yet? Do you have something, Lars, that you would like to comment?
No, I think it's of course quite similar, really. So I have the inbox, I have the personal projects, the work-related projects, a few more lists split up for home. Stuff to do on the Mac, stuff to do around the house. I think it's fun that you also had the recurring one, or the repeating one, as I've called it in mine. So some stuff that will automatically come back to me. Also have one called Planned, which is just for those location-based reminders that I just want to, typically location-based, or that's kind of a tickler file, those kinds of items that they end up in there. One technical question, just I don't know if you have come across, when you share, I don't know if you have any of those lists that are shared, but what I have found, may just be a bug on my end, but I'm unable to put a list that someone else shared with me into a group. And that kind of bugs me because I'm not able to move things around. So, for example, my wife, who also works in the company, has shared a list of projects that she's working on in the company. I have a group for Vital Learning with all the different lists in there, but I'm actually unable to move that into the group. So I'm guessing that's kind of it's got to be a bug somewhere. But that doesn't work for me yet. I don't know if you have found a solution.
I have not, but I'm looking now that I can share lists with you when it is within a folder in a group. So maybe the idea is, or maybe the solution to this is just to create a new list inside a folder and then move the next actions there, and then share the list after. I don't know if that makes
I think
sense.
the list owner can actually do the organization, because I have a group with some things that are shared, so that works fine. But on the other end, the receiving party cannot organize them in groups.
Exactly. Okay, so and that makes sense as well, because or I don't know how much sense it should. The flexibility should be there, but it reminds me of what Microsoft To Do does. If you share a list with someone, it will show up as delegated to me, or you can delegate in Teams and Planner or Planner in Teams. And it's actually changed the name now, so it's called Planner and Tasks for Teams. I think it's a little confusing. It's a moving target. Trying to, But the idea then is that if you will have just a list of the things that have been delegated to you, and then you have to recreate that in your system. So that's even more closed down.
Yeah, that's when you use the planner. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, okay, so I'm guessing that's probably a bug, but that'll be fixed. Otherwise, it's of course very similar. We have the shared shopping list that we can add to, so no surprise there. I don't use the hashtags, and that's partially on purpose, because I wanted to go back to the vanilla GTD separate lists and walk through that. Let's see if I revert, and that's part of the thing that I'd be most curious to see as I go forward, and I'll use this for a few months, and how much will I miss that link between projects and next actions that I had so nicely set up over in Todoist. So let's see how that goes. Obviously, the hashtags is certainly one way to go about that. One thing I was curious about as well, I remember from when we spoke about your use of Omnifocus, that when you put dates on items into Omnifocus, if I remember correctly, that was sort of a hard landscape kind of thing. That was similar to, this is something that has to happen on this day. Is that still the case in Apple Reminders, if I even remember correctly?
Well, in Omnifocus, you have two different kinds of dates. It's called defer date and due dates. And depending on how you set up your system, it could then mean that shows up on that day as a deferred item. The problem with that, as I recall it, is that if that deferred date then passed and you don't look at that deferred date, then it will kind of go into darkness. You will not remember it afterwards. How I'm using this in Apple, because before I go home in the afternoon, or early in the morning, I will then decide what is my 2-3 most important things I need to get done today. That's not in my calendar. If I have some, air in my calendar, I want to have that visible for me. So the way that I've done this is that I've turned off notifications on my Mac for anything that has to do with the reminders. But I use the due dates on the items as what I call a soft due date.
Okay, so they are soft dates. Okay.
For me, it is soft. It doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't give me a pling or a ding or a notification of any sorts. I turned it off on my phone as well. The only thing that's, if sometimes I don't know why, it shows up on my Apple Watch. I know that's a little annoying. You can turn off, for instance, when do you want to be reminded of this? If you have because you can give it as a due date today, or due date today and a specific time during that day. Which is fairly interesting, because it gives you the way of differentiating it. This is just need to get done today, or at a specific time I need this reminder. But it is a little, how it is with reminders is that you can get bogged down with them, then they can kill you or kill your attention. So using that without any sort of reminders, it can show up on my phone when I'm outside as a soft. That's okay, but I don't want to have a reminder of whatever is due today. I don't need that. But one of the things that I found very beneficial, in addition to that you can get time-based reminders, and then you can use that as a way to make what I call a short list for what I need to get done today. Today I have my weekly review needs to get done. I have 3 tasks that I would like to get to before I go home today. That doesn't take a long time. It's just write a couple of emails. But these are things that I deem to be important enough to I want to see them in a very specific little space. It's called today. One thing that I also use a lot, I don't know if you use that, is the remind me of something when what happens. For instance, when I'm in next time when I'm writing Lars an SMS or an iMessage, I want to be reminded of this. And then because then if I send you an SMS, and it will automatically show me remind me of what I wanted to tell you when I write that. And that I like. And I also like the location-based reminders. So, for instance, when I'm close to one of the magazines that I know I frequent often, or not very often, but every week or every second week we go there, and then it will remind me, buy this. Don't forget to buy this if you're close by. And that I like. I also like the remind me when I leave from here. For instance, if I'm in you're in the lobby at the client, and I get an email from Lars. I want to call you when I leave that place, and I can do that. I can just say, remind me of this when I leave here, and then when I go out the door and get 50 meters outside the door or something like that, then I will get a reminder on my phone to call you.
No, I love that one as well. Those are really, really useful.
Yeah, and then you can, for instance, when I get in the car or when I get out of my car, it's just the same when it connects to some Bluetooth device, your phone, it can give you the same idea. So do you have some other tricks up your sleeves, Lars, that you have?
No, I think those are really, especially the location-based ones. I think that's also part of the motivation for me to migrate to reminders, because they're just so helpful. So they'll be, oh, that's right. I need to just update some things before the seminar. When I get to the office, I'll get that reminder when I get there. I like the idea of the one with the text-based reminders, but I've never actually used it myself. But the location-based one and the car-related one, those are certainly important for me.
There are people. Sorry. I'm just using that what we just talked about now as a way to remind me of things. The SMSs. I have some people I send SMS all the time, which is main communication channel. So if I'm reminded I must not forget to tell this, then it goes there. So not very often, but it's there, and I like the idea. So.
Yeah. No, I think other than that, what I'm, when you migrate from a more complex system or a system with more features, perhaps, I'm curious to see what I will miss the most. Obviously, the key one will be the link between projects and next actions, and how that will work for me now that I'm trying out the plain version without the hashtags. The other key thing that I will be looking to change around is to the capture part is very nice and easy with Siri, but most times I won't, because in many cases the transcription won't be good enough. So I still use brain toss, so that'll have to go now to my email where it went to the Todoist inbox. That's sort of a minor thing, but that'll have to change. And then the checklists. Those are still the ones that I'm most curious about. And it anyway came up that we had to make a change now with the new trainers that are now on board with Vital Learning. I wanted to set up a good set of shared checklists that we could then use to track that the seminars that we're delivering, that they are on track, that they are ready, that we have the materials shipped to them, that that these things get done. So have that kind of shared overview. Looked into different systems. We ended up again, I think I mentioned this to you, taking your boring approach, but that yes. Seemed to be the best one, Google Sheets. So that's where we set it up now. I've been customizing a list now, so it's you go in there, you can filter whether it's for a client or it's an open seminar, virtual or in person, and there's a date functionality to help you navigate which dates you need, whether it's done, then it's marked as completed, who is actually the owner of this item. So all of that good stuff is in there, and I think we now have a process that will work. So the only thing that is missing for those checklists that I had in Todoist is those date-specific ones, where I, in theory, I could go in and check the checklist to see if there were anything on that given date, but obviously that'll be a bit, heavy workload. So what I'm looking at now is to play around with that template and make one that I can then have and set up in my own system for the tasks that would fall to me, either for the admin stuff around a specific seminar, or for me as a trainer to get that set up. So I think in the end it'll be easier and better to set it up this way. It'll give that shared overview, the possibility to collaborate with a shared checklist, but still also give me the dates and information that I need in my system. So that's what I'm looking at, and now sort of next steps.
Yeah. And just I dabbled around with Google Docs today, and I understand there is a lot of changes coming for those of you who are in the G Suite programs. And I think the same will happen in Google Sheets, where you actually, if you are using Google Tasks or Google Reminders, I don't know what it's called, I think it's called Google Tasks. If you are using that, then you can also create the tasks inside a sheet or a document that will show up at the person you put that at Lars, and then put the check mark. It will be automatically assigned you, which is some of the. I'm not telling you to swap now to Google Tasks.
That sounds interesting. But maybe I should.
Yeah. No, but I have actually I have a client now, a coaching client who's in the Google Sphere only, and who is migrating into Google Tasks. So that's also a possibility. Some quirks and some things you need to work around to get it to work as a a good GTD system, but it is functional. It's and I'm sure that Google and the others will make a lot of changes in the time to come now as AI becomes more prevalent. How do you say that? more in the focus, more visible.
No, and like you said, now it is actually pretty impressive that the basic functionality across reminders, Microsoft To Do, Google Tasks, it really can work well and integrate well with email, which has historically at least been for me a challenge to figure out how could we do this in the best possible way. And now it seems to be that really all of the major platforms have actually this functionality available. So cool stuff.
Imagine that everything can connect to everything. That is makes it easier to keep an eye on your files that you need for action support. Everything can talk to each other. I kind of like that. One thing, I have two things more that I wanted to or three things. Just want to say that I've been playing around with Apple's shortcuts, which is the programmable part of where you can create small scripts that can do things for you. One of the scripts I built is just to grab things from a web page and then put it in the notes part of a reminder, and then I can then automatically save it with that shortcut to the inbox, so I can clarify and organize it from there. So shortcuts as integrated to reminders. If you want to try and dabble with that, that's also a possibility. And one of the things I've also played with is the possibility to use an app called Hooks, or Hooks app, I think it is called. It's a Mac app only, but it is a way to hook things together. So if I have 6 files I have in 6 different locations that belongs to one project, and I can hook them together and create what's called a hook, and then paste that hook into the reminder, so I can just click that hook and then I get an overview of all the documents or emails or web pages or basically anything that you can that is an item in your Google in your Apple ecosystem. So if for those of you who find that interesting, Hooks app. And one thing that is my last reflection for today is that I've decided to try and keep my system within 100 items. Because that is a little of a battle. Now I'm 125, so I want to just to make sure that my system don't get overgrown. I know I had a tendency in Omnifocus before is to let things just grow. I captured almost anything that could be someday relevant, but as you get a little older, a little more mature, you get a little more, as I talk about before, the seriously, the bullshit filter, you have to activate that, but a way to activate that for me is to make sure that I have a number of items, because there are too many things in this world to do than there is time. So how do I make sure that I don't feel bad about things I'm not doing? That one part is to decide not doing it, or either just delete it or put it in the someday maybe. But if you have too many someday maybes, then you get stressed by that. So 125 is a little too much. I'm going to try and work it down to around 100. Then I'm sure I will have good days.
I have 168 right now, so some work for me to get done. Well, and I still haven't migrated all of the stuff. So no, there's certainly some things to weed out. Perhaps some of the lists are shared, a lot of different errands. So I wouldn't, focus too much on that for my system. But certainly agree with you to keep that number low. And I noted both you and David in the coaching call earlier this week said all of this gets easier with age. One of the things that I am not sure if that gets easier, but you get more
or at least I've become more aware of what it does to me if I have too many things on my plate. It's nagging me that I'm not getting around to it. So I've decided to try and find a number of things that I can have on my plate and at the same time feel good about them all. Even the ones I decided not to do something about now, but that I will do something about later.
Yeah, perhaps that's even the best tip of the day, to be more aware of that. At least I recognize that as well.
Because all of the things you're not doing will pull on your attention, even though you're not doing them. So decide to do them or not. So, well, with those ending words, I think we are at the end, are we not?
We are ready to wrap up, and as we always do, with a quick reminder to head on over to VitalLearning.eu, have a look around. You'll find the information about the different seminars that we offer, speeches. You'll find links to the country websites as well. So go over there, have a look around. Outside the Nordics, head on over to cruciallearning.com to find your local partners. I would also normally remind you about the GTD Summer Camp 2023, tell you that sign up is open. Actually, now sign up is closed because the last seats were filled. Yeah, you're right. Three months before the summer camp, it's already fully booked. So I have a few people on the waiting list right now. I'm looking into whether we can make something happen for them. If you want to get on that waiting list, I think for now is to just email me directly and I'll put you on that list. But yeah, it's really cool that there's been so much support for this. So thanks so much for those of you listening who will be attending. Looking forward to seeing you there. For those of you who don't know about it, perhaps gtdsummercamp.com is where to go to find more information.
And if they wanted to send you an email, that would be lars@vitallearning.dk, wouldn't it be?
That is correct. Yes, your email game is spot on today.
Yeah, today. Last time, not so much. So, for those of you who have not done that yet, I would like to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast in whatever podcast app you're using. Do so on YouTube as well, and subscribe and like and bell and everything if you like to get notified. And we do like when some people give us a 5-star rating somewhere. It makes us happy. So if you want to support us, do that, and make sure that you share the podcast with someone who could use this knowledge. And I think that's it.
That is it.
Is it? Yeah. So until next time, Lars and everyone else, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.